have. And over on my left, Matt Dublinger. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So, I'm really enamored with your family who's been in Miami for many, many, many years. So before we get on the task today, let's hear about your family and the impact it's made, not just to Miami-Dade County, but to all of Florida and perhaps across the country as well.
Well, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here. And I am a fourth-gen Wolfson family member here in Miami-Dade. My great-grandfather was the Colonel Mitchell Wolfson, and he started Miami-Dade College. But before he started Miami-Dade College, he ran an amazing and large media company called Wometco. So my family's blood runs very deep when it comes to storytelling and media in the landscape of South Florida and the ecosystem here. And over the years, after my great-grandfather had Wometco and Miami-Dade College started, it was my grandfather and my grandmother who then put the archives together and realized that all of the film that was acquired and created during the lifetime of WTVJ, the news station.
Wometco station. And went there Wometco theaters?
Yes.
And
it started with movie theaters, and then it went into television, and then it led into cable, and they went public, and then it sold. And that was, the creation of the cycle of the business, which then led into the legacy. And that's kind of where I came in a few gens later to continue the legacy that was laid and to really just continue, cheering on for this community and the citizens that are here to keep the stories that are alive of South Floridians and to have access to the archives, which is housed at the Miami-Dade College Wolfson campus. And really just to encourage all filmmakers to use these resources available and to learn and spark curiosity and continue to tell and tell again and tell again.
And we're here today to talk about a couple of things, including filmmaking. Yes. So why don't you tell us about Matt, all right?
So Matt is a winner of our short doc series. His program, your Uncle Luke vs. America.
Right.
Is that still the correct title?
Yeah.
I know it was a working.
I think the more we work on this project and do research and look into it, the more the title becomes not only appropriate, but I think like the title that really defined Uncle Luke. He was up against America during the critical time periods where the story takes place in the early 90s.
Right.
Yeah.
And Matt, along with 5 others, shared in a $100,000 award that we offer every year through the Miami Film Festival at Miami-Dade College. And it is to use the archives as a resource for their films and their storytelling on South Florida specifically.
Let's talk a little bit about Uncle Luke. He was really an upfront guy, and I don't know if he didn't care, but it seems like, no, I'm speaking this truth. My truth, I'm going to speak. You may like it or may not. Mm-hmm. So when you started realizing that, did your impression sort of alter a little bit? Did you start to understand him about why and how he did those things?
Yeah, I did actually. So I'm an attorney by trade, and I first read one of his cases in law school, an intellectual property law course. And so that's how I was familiar with his case, but I knew about him. I was just growing up in Miami and listening to his music. And so just like you said, he just said what he wanted to say, like no one could kind of control him or restrict him or censor him. And I thought that was really, really cool. But as I researched it more and I was reading his Book of Luke, which is a phenomenal book that came out, I think like 10 years ago, what I didn't realize and what I learned was that he actually was like the villain during all of this. And his mentality was, okay, if you're going to paint me out to be the villain, then I'm going to embrace it and be the baddest villain there is. And so I'm going to dial it up a notch, crank it up and put out an album that you can't stand. And when I put it out, come after me. And that was As Nasty as They Want to Be, which was declared obscene by a Broward County judge, first in the nation, first artist to be declared obscene. And so what I didn't realize, that he embraced this villain role and took it to the extreme just to prove that he could, and artists have a freedom of speech, right?
Do you recall the moment where went in your brain, you said, I think we're going to do like a movie or something about this? Tell us about that moment.
Yeah. March 2025 last year.
Wow.
I was doing just, I guess I don't know if I followed him and he posted some link or something, but somehow I came across an article about his obscenity battle. And then I remembered about the Supreme Court case on parody that I read in law school. And I was looking back at my text the other day, and like I have texted all my friends like, this would be a really cool documentary actually, and like, you know, it talks about like the law, which is like, you know, what I do, and then just filmmaking and documentary filmmaking, which I love, and this is my third documentary project. But it wasn't until getting the grant and finding out in January this year that, you know, this is actually happening. This isn't just a dream or idea that I'm texting friends. Like, this is real, and we're making a movie.
So it must be pretty fulfilling to this vague thing that you happen to be in law school and you came across, said, this is it.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's just so rewarding, and to be able to like do it with Miami Film Festival and the Louies, and through the Wolfson Archives. Like, I love the Wolfson Archives, and like we stuff on there, just amazing. I'm just searching like obscenity, banned, censorship, just any keyword I can think of, and I've got like a log, and like I've got footage from the 1950s, you know, of cops in black and white going to literature stores and bookstores and taking stuff off the shelves. And Jim Morrison, his trial is on there, and so I'm like, oh, maybe we can do like montage of like obscenity through the years leading up to Luke. Like, there's just so many fun, creative things we can do with the Wolfson Archives.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So your forefathers, if you will, they had the insight to be able to do that. And I shared with you earlier, my father was on Channel 7 as a co-anchor, and I remember when I was a child, he was on air covering Hurricane Donna. And my guess is I saw it for 15 seconds, my guess. Years later, approximately 60, somebody sends us a link to that 2 minutes. What a difference it made. Mm-hmm. So for that 15 seconds, it lived with me for so long. And when I saw it, I went, it just came back so fast. And to see these guys, and I remember their names, this guy and this guy here, oh my goodness. And it was such obviously a huge impact. And we play it on a loop in the back. So he's been gone, I don't know, 15 years. I've probably seen him more in the last year than all the 15 before. But it's such an impactful moment to go back and look at history, and you can see that. And my father worked also at WDR, Black radio station, at a show called The Gospel Hour. And so I was not able to find too much on that. But when you go to the archives, you can see in the 50s and 60s and see what man people went through. And when he took me to St. Augustine to the marches up there, and you saw what was going on, and I still ask myself today, what did those black people ever do to these white people for them to be so angry? And when you see what was going on, right, you start to see how important the history is so that we don't forget it. And those things really impacted us, the operation we do here. We made a decision that we were, on our shows, that we were going to represent Miami. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a show in English, one in Spanish, one in Haitian Creole, and one in Portuguese. Wow. There may be some other ones in there too, and when that was going, it was such a great feeling. And later today, we will have people, I am sure, from about 15 countries here. And we know that is important to do, because when people look back to 2025, we want to be able to say, this is what we did. And again, so thank you to your family for creating that. And people can go there for free.
Absolutely.
Take a look around if they want to get something.
Online.
Right?
Yes.
And it's easy, wolfenarchives.org, I think. And you can go there and you can see the history of Miami and the impact that we, as this huge multicultural center here, has had on the entire country.
Can I add something to that?
Of course.
I was really excited to share this, actually, because I've searched my friends' last names and things like that. Like one of my friends, Harley Gussman, her great-grandfather, Maurice Gussman, like I found footage and sent it to her, and she had that same, the reaction you just had. I've searched my family's name on there, Dublinger, nothing. My father, he was born in Miami Beach, 1945, and goes way back, and he started an on-hold messaging company in the 80s called Audiocom. He passed away when I was 11 in 2001, and I've searched Audiocom. There's nothing there. Friday night, 11:30 p.m., I just searched the phrase on hold, and I found a new segment from November 25th, 1985, covering his company, and they interview him, and hearing him speak, I burst into tears. I wasn't able to hold it back. I was crying.
Yeah.
And my mom's in it too, because she was helping out with the company. To see that, and I felt so proud and excited. And it's like, if it wasn't for Wolfson Archives, I would have never, ever seen anything like that. And I haven't heard his voice since 2001.
Piercing.
So, yeah, it's really, really special.
From
Thank you.
1948 to about 2000, the Wolfson Archives houses 35,000 hours of videotape and 23 million feet of film documenting Florida history. So 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. And it's really a resource for all of us to use and to be connected and to get that piercing, because those are the stories that live on.
What was the genesis of creating that?
For the citizens to be able to keep and relive, to learn, and to not repeat, what my great-grandfather saw when serving in World War II and propaganda, and really using history and these documents and this film as a resource so that we don't repeat history, that we learn, that we can teach from this. It's actual facts. I mean, this is as hard as it gets. Yeah. So it is a resource for all of us.
So Matt, here you are with your. Is this your first documentary?
Third.
Your third one.
Yeah.
Should I ask him what's next?
No.
Always.
What's next, Matt?
This is what's next. That's what people were asking for 2 years, actually. Our first documentary premiered at Miami Film Festival 2023, Python Huntress, about Donna Khalil and her efforts to eliminate the invasive Burmese python from the Everglades. Our second documentary premiered at Miami Film Festival 2024. About Churchill's Pub, and we shot it while it was closed down, and it's now up and running, and it's back and better than ever. And our third documentary, was everyone asked for 2 years when it's going to be released. So Miami Film Festival 2027, I guess.
Yep,
but we're in production right now. So
one of the things you recognize sometimes is a thing called NC, which is no choice.
Yeah.
So we received a nomination for an Emmy on some work that we did a couple of years ago.
Congrats.
Thanks. And I'm in this room with 860 journalists. Thousands of stories were told. And I'm sitting in that room. I said, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, Michael? I came back and said, we are going to we're going to start interviewing Holocaust survivors. So we put together 7 Holocaust survivors from ages like 89, 90 to 101 or 102. And we put that together. It was for the love of it. You think it's only going to take a little time. It took a lot of time. Oh, yeah. And so we had Farah Sachs, who was in our office, works here. Her husband is a former Israeli pilot. And as we were putting it together, it was so moving to me. And one of the gentlemen, he had the numbers there, and the whole show, it was like this. And you could talk to these people and understand what went on. Then we shortened it up. We tried to make it a 15-minute thing, but it wound up at 30 was the shortest, so it was a little bit for each one. And we did that because we didn't have a choice. You must do something. And the time to tell a story is when it's a story, because when it's gone, you sort of lose the impetus, to do that.
Yeah.
So if you could go interview anybody, alive or dead, and you can make this documentary about them, what is it? Who is it?
Wow, that's really an interesting question. I mean, the easy answer is obviously like my parents, because just to be able to speak to them again, and I'm just so proud of what they did. But I think what a fun answer for this podcast and just the Wolfson Archives in general, I'd say Julia Tuttle would be really cool. She's the first, I think the only woman to have incorporated a city before. And I guess there was not really any footage from back then, but right. I think she's really underrated and underappreciated. She's got a causeway named after her, but if it wasn't for Julia Tuttle, none of us would be here. So that, yeah.
Yeah.
So also one of the things that we recognize is you have to give time to the people that, number one, deserve it, and that you want to amplify their message, whether it happens to be a woman, right? Because I'll bet there's a whole lot of other women that are out there that didn't get their opportunity for their 15 minutes. So I hope that you find it, and I hope that you can do that.
Yeah.
Thank you for arranging the funding for these type of things.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us about some of the other people that are in nomination for this?
So the other winners so we had one feature-length documentary winner, which is a 50-minute, And Kareem Tabish won with Save Our Children. And then Matt with Uncle Luke vs. America was our first short doc. Our second short doc is Twin Sons, the Scully Sisters story by Jessica Hubert Berman. And then our third short doc is The Untitled Everglades by Monica Sorrell. And our fourth, which is our, it's a finishing fund. 2 filmmakers are rewarded with $10,000 to complete their feature-length documentary in the post-production phase. And those 2 winners was First Come, First Serve by Forrest Kennedy and Emerald Clearforest Shepherd second. And the final one was The Bay of Pigs Project by Carlos Gutierrez. And those were our 6 winners
Wonderful.
of the 2026 Louies Awards. And the Louies is part of the film festival at Miami-Dade College. And
How did it get that name, by the way?
The Louies is after my grandfather, Louis Wolfson II, and my grandmother is Lynn Wolfson. And it was the 2 of them and their love of media and the idea that it is to be preserved and used as a resource. And my dad and my grandmother are the ones that really put it into, motion to get it a permanent space and to digitize it. We have now digitized most of the film because it was on hard film. So.
And just so their audience can understand, a family member of yours started WTBJ.
That's correct.
And what
Colonel
year,
Mitchell Wolfson.
And what year was that?
WTVJ, I believe, started in 1948.
Wow.
And you had, there was a guy named Rennick that was with you, wasn't he?
Yes, Robert Rennick.
How-
Yep, he was the lead broadcaster, and he was the face, and in everyone's homes, he was trusted beyond belief, and he got to the stories and shared as a storyteller.
I get goosebumps because I've seen that introduction to him.
Right.
And he was if I remember right, the first guy.
Yes.
That was there.
He led
There for a
the
long
way.
time? How many years was he there?
Oh, I want to say at least
Longer than most of us.
50, 40.
Wow.
Yes.
I'd have to look that
Yes.
up.
So, what was in their brain and their personality? So we're going to start this TV station. We think thing's going to work. We think that maybe people will huddle around this instead of a radio, right?
Well, since they started in movie theaters, and they were always really good at morphing with the times. So it started with movie theaters, but that eventually led into televisions. And televisions back in the day were a gathering space for community. Most people couldn't afford a television, so televisions were placed in plazas or squares, or back in the day there was department stores and things where people were gathering so that stories could be shared and local news to be shared. And that, they knew TV was the way. And when he went over to serve in World War II, he saw what was happening with propaganda, and he thought, as he came back to Miami, he said how important it was for him to give light and voices to those that are going to share the truth and teach the truth and continue to, be a part and not forget it. Like that's where trouble happens.
So we see that the content gathering is completely changed, all right? And it's different. The distrust among young people is really, really, really high. And then when I started thinking about it, I'm thinking, okay, if you were going to say with local TV, for the stations that I would watch, I have no problem in listening to them and know that what I'm getting is as close to accurate as you can get. Some people think, well, if it's not directly this way. No, you could go to the same event and interpret different things. I could watch that and go, yeah, here's a guy who did this, this, and this. He was not. Other people would say, the guy's brilliant. Mm-hmm. So when people tell me they distrust, I said, why don't you get to your world where you get your content? And if there's some places you don't like it, get it from some other trusted sources. Mm-hmm. And certainly Ralph Rennick was one of those people.
Exactly.
I knew his brother, Robert, I think, Richard. No, the other one. Anyway, he was involved, and you know what he's involved with? With film. He ran the tourism film something for a long time,
Oh,
right?
cool.
Yeah, and he lived in Palmetto Bay or Pinecrest, a gentleman's gentleman. So what's next on your agenda? By the way, do you still practice law?
I do. I just drove over here from my firm. I do commercial litigation and international law, which has nothing to do with documentary filmmaking, except for the research component. And I've kind of realized this within the last year or two, just like reflecting on everything. Like I love legal research and I love documentary research. And there's like just an overlap in terms of like the storytelling component and what are the facts. Let's research the facts, get the facts right, and tell the facts. And for what's next for this project, we just shot, we just went into production. So day one was this past Sunday, and we shot interviews with Uncle Luke in the historic Dade County Courthouse.
Wow.
They closed down in November and moved next door. We were in the Al Capone courtroom that's been there for 100 years, and he had his trials there in 1930s. And so it was very, very exciting to get to do that. And so what's next is we have to just reach out to other people and start planning interviews.
Who's we? Tell us who those.
So our producer, Diliana Alexander, she's the co-founder of Filmgate Miami, which is a nonprofit that, she's like the fairy godmother for all like local indie filmmakers. She's amazing. Without her, I couldn't do any of this. So she's part of the team. And then one of my best friends and longtime filmmaking collaborator, Nick Orris, who's a professional DP in Denver. He co-directed Python Hunters with me, co-directed Churchill's. He flew in Saturday at 12:30 at night and flew out Monday at 6 in the morning just for this shoot to make time to come here and work on that. And then Amadeus McCaskill is our grip sound engineer and all that. So we were a 3-person crew plus Diliana. So we'll see if it expands to something bigger, but that was perfect for this. Yeah.
When did you recognize you wanted to make documentaries?
So it's funny. In high school, for fun, just like over the summers, I would make mockumentaries with my neighbors, like Spinal Tap and like Best in Show and all that. And I loved doing it. And we like made a mockumentary about my neighbor's bicycle getting stolen. And we went and interviewed the neighborhood kids, but they didn't know we were making a mockumentary. They thought we were serious and like we were interrogating them. So like I think about that. I'm like, well, I guess that's what was my first like documentary. But I was doing a narrative short film as my first like official short while I was in law school and while I was a practicing attorney. And my one of the partners at my firm, Craig Khalil, his wife is Donna Khalil, who's the Python huntress. And he said, does anyone want to go Python hunting with my wife one day? And we all said, well, what's Python hunting? So it was out there with her hunting pythons. I was like, Donna, we need to make a documentary about this. I don't know how to make documentaries, but we're going to make one. And, she was kind enough to let us do that. And that's kind of what set everything in motion and brought us here today.
It's great.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you brought about python hunting. My daughter, she likes to stay clean with everything. And so her husband, my son-in-law, went python hunting. So there's my daughter, all right, with boots up to here, walking around. I go, I cannot believe that you did it. And they didn't catch anything. But when you see how it changes people when you go to, I used to collect snakes and go hunting, not for pythons, but whatever's in the Everglades then. And one of the things we do know, the catastrophe that is happening in the Everglades, all the 4-legged critters are gone, the 2-legged, that's going to affect the panthers, going to affect the vultures and the hawks. And it's a real disaster.
98% of the mammals have been wiped out.
Yep. And it's, okay, so what's going to happen? I speak to biologists, they tell what they're hoping for is that even though the python's going to eat the other babies, there'll be that balance. They're hoping that in a generation or 2 or 3, there'll be some virus that's going to come along and do it. And I think that python hunting is great, with the state. I hate to say it, it's just show. Maybe that's what they think they can do. And it's just really a disaster.
It's really sad.
We used to import snakes, by the way.
Yeah.
So I understand what can happen.
Well, and Donna's a herpetologist, so she loves snakes. So that was the moral conflict for that film. It's like, how do you have somebody who loves snakes and caught snakes her whole life be hired to kill snakes? It was just, but it's for the good of the environment to protect the Everglades because the pythons don't belong there.
Yeah. So here we have a couple minutes left. So before we end, what I'd like you to do in a moment, you're going to look in the camera, and Emily, why don't you focus the camera on her? Why don't you talk to somebody out there and people that have helped you along your way, maybe some mentors. If they're past, that's fine. You want to mention people by name? You're up next, by the way.
Yeah.
So why don't you look in that? There we go. All right, you're on. There you go. All yours.
So I have had many mentors and role models and mensches in my life and continue to have. When it comes to the film and really this partnership with Miami-Dade College, Miami Film Festival, and creating the Louies again, resparking the Louies right after COVID, has been because of a very dear friend, Dennis Scholl, who I couldn't have done this without. He has helped us reimagine how this award could help our ecosystem storytell. He really put light on how funds could be used for the artists in ways that would be very helpful to them. He's really been that guide and that leader for us. And we are starting the Louies in New York City as of this year.
Oh, wow.
In October of 2026.
Exciting.
We will be with Docs New York City, offering a $100,000 award.
Amazing.
To film and cinematographers in the New York area. And we really want to continue growing the Louies across the country. And again, Dennis Scholl has a really deep understanding of this ecosystem. And there's no one else that I would, trust and help me guide through the process.
Wow.
Matt, you're up. You're going to look at that camera right over there. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I'll say Dennis Scholl gave the commencement address at my law school graduation.
Oh, wow.
And he was CEO of Oolite when we got the grant for Churchill's. So Dennis Scholl's just all over there. Yeah, my films
Yeah,
and my
incredible.
career. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned my parents before. My father, Ronald Arthur Deblinger, was born in Miami Beach, 1945, went to Beach High, started his own small business in Miami, which I used to go to when I was a kid growing up. And it had a recording studio in there because they would do on-hold messaging for telephones. So it was like business, but there was also like this creative concept to it. And that was a big inspiration. And he died when I was 11. And people have told me ever since then what a great guy he is and how much he loves me. And I've tried to carry that with me. And then my mom, Michelle Portel Deblinger, she died when I was 22. And she was the most creative person I've ever met and the best writer I've ever met. And she would write film scripts for me and say, here, why don't you direct this commercial I just wrote? Or like, she was just so great. So I really try to carry like with me, like with my filmmaking and my practice, carry them with me. And then, in terms of just like even like the legal practice and being kind to others and just, wanting to, I don't know, give a voice to people that might not have their voice, or just even just a platform to tell other people's stories. Richard Milstein was my guardian ad litem, great, phenomenal lawyer at Ackerman. And then really, I mean, I've mentioned Diliana Alexander, our producer, who has been screening ever since my first short film, she's been screening my films and believing in me, which is nice. But really the people that I'm most like appreciative of are really the filmmakers and everyone that's helped out with our prior films, because we're doing small budget indie films, and I do this as a passion, as a hobby really right now. And just every filmmaker that has volunteered on set for no pay or just for reduced rates. There's so many. I mean, like Dana Bruschi, our audio engineer for Churchill's. It's like if it wasn't for those guys that like believed in the stories that we were telling or believed in me, like I would not be here today. I would not have access to Luther Campbell of Two Live Crew. And so I'm just so grateful for everyone. And one of the beautiful things about this grant is now we have like funding to pay people like their day rates. We don't have volunteers on set anymore. And like, it's like I tell my friends this, it's like, this money is like not for me. This is for you guys. So like I can actually like pay you like as working in this industry and making a living. So
Exactly.
I'm really grateful for all those people.
Wonderful. I want to share one story with you. About 30% of the shows that we do are to amplify not-for-profits work. So there's a young lady, she came in, she tells me her story. By age 16, she had worked in 3 migrant camps, Homestead, Texas, and Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. At some point, her family physically abused her. They ran away to the grandfather's house, who then sexually abused her. At age 16, 18 or so, somebody helped her out, got her into Miami-Dade, got her into Barry, and then she got a scholarship for a master's at Case Western. She started a not-for-profit in Homestead. She got $1 million or so from Jeff Bezos' wife, bought a building that happened to be a church, and now she's in the social service business. She ended the show with, if you've been sexually abused, it's not your fault, you're not alone, and call me. Wow. And when we hear those stories that there's some little girl, some little boy is wondering, is there a future for that. When the work that you do helps create a future, somebody can look at it and say, yes, good things can happen, even if bad things happen to you.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap it up. Okay, and thank you very much for being here, Matt.
Thank you for having
Congratulations.
me.
That's wonderful.
Congrats
Very happy
again.
for you.
Thank you to both.
And we look forward to
excited.
many more. And we're going to
Yes.
look in the camera right here. Folks, thanks for joining us. That's number one. Number two, Grant and I subscribe to the Disney rule, which is when you hug someone,